Hello everyone, this is Austin Johns, recovery specialist and director of Return to Sport for OrthoVirginia. And today we're going to talk about hip activation. Hip activation exercises are meant to help you stabilize, help an individual stabilize when they're running or jumping or moving in any sort of athletic position. It will also actually help stabilize your lower back and your knees in various circumstances. We're going to talk about that in just a second. The first thing we need to pay attention to when we talk about hip activation is doing two different things. One, it's increasing blood flow and stimulation of our musculature, particularly our stabilization musculature around our hip. Our hip looks like this. So if this were the long bone of my leg, the femur, okay, and then this is the socket of my hip, so down here, all right? The leg bone is moving around like this, and we've got a whole bunch of musculature around the back side here that stabilize that leg in that socket. We have things called the go-go muscles, we have a thing called piriformis, and then what everybody's familiar with are the gluteal muscles. There are actually three of them, and one of those is a major what's called hip rotator. What we're trying to do with hip activation is actually increase the body's ability to stabilize hip rotation. Every time our foot impacts the ground, we're introducing a little bit of rotational force both to our foot, our knee, and our hip and on up. And if our hip can actually stabilize a lot of that rotation, then we're not going to have it in our back, we're not going to have it in our knee and other places that really shouldn't rotate that much. Now how are we going to do that? Well, we're actually going to put some force on the outside of our legs, and we're pretty much going to move our legs around in a lateral motion. We're working on lateral positioning here. It's something we don't think about very often, and if we're sitting down in a chair or we're walking straight forward, this is linear motion. Okay, if I'm going to the side, this is lateral motion. It's very important, particularly for athletics, but for every human being out there, to have lateral motion and have neurological stimulation, which brings us to the second factor of what hip activation does, which is neurological stimulation. A lot of times our body, when we repeatedly do the same thing, we'll find ourselves having a deactivated neural stimulus to certain musculature. And that happens a lot here, particularly if we're sitting frequently, or again, if we're just moving forward. Even runners, long distance runners, they have a lot of straightforward motion in their life. They don't get a whole lot of lateral motion. So the neurological stimulus that goes to these hip stabilizing musculatures decreases. So we can do some very simple exercises to help that increase and get better over time. So we have neurological lateral awareness, and these are great preparatory exercises for running, jumping, lunging, really anything that you're going to do with the lower body. When you do this as a pre-workout or something in the beginning of your warm-up, it gets that neurological stimulation going, and it really gets those muscles firing up. So let's check out a couple of hip activation exercises. Okay, so here we are. We're going to do some hip activation exercises. And we have a couple of different implements that are going to help us do that. Remember I said in the introduction of hip activation, we're looking for resistance of lateral motion. So we need something that's sort of pushing on the outside of our legs to make this work. There are a couple of different ways to do it. We have what's called mini bands, and they come in different tensions. These are my favorite way to do it. We'll get to those in a second. There's also a standard resistance band that you'll find in a lot of gyms and other fitness centers around the country. If we go ahead and take the fitness band and we stand on it, we want to be about hip width standing on this band. Now we're actually going to cross the band over. This is going to add some resistance and some stability. The next thing I want to do is get into something of an athletic stance. Okay, an athletic stance is simply bent knees. From this position, I'm going to have some lateral force on the outside of my feet. And what I'm going to do is just try to step back and forth. Now, as I do this, I need to make sure my feet are staying straight forward. And as you do it a couple of repetitions over and over, you'll start to feel all this musculature on the outside of the hips starts to get some strain, which is exactly what we're shooting for. There are a bunch of different exercises that you can do here. You can push really wide. You can actually do squats in this position. There are a couple of different things we can do, but it's a little bit cumbersome with this band, so we're going to try the mini bands and see how that works. A lot of gyms these days and other fitness centers are carrying these mini bands. You can frequently ask your fitness professional or medical professional to get some mini bands or just some looped bands to put around your legs. So we're going to take this. You also notice that with the mini band, I actually can change where the force occurs on my body. So before, it was pretty much down around my feet. I had to wrap the thing around my feet. I can move this down my ankles, so now it's around my feet as well. But for today's purposes, I'm going to start right up here at my knees. Okay? And what I'm going to do to start with, again, we're going to do a side-stepping exercise. So I just want to keep my feet pointed forward, just step out to the side and back. And you'll notice I'm really trying to drive with my knees. I'm trying to push through my knees as much as I can. If I step like this, I'm actually taking my hip out of the equation, putting a little bit of extra force on my knee. That's kind of an inefficient way to do it. Also, if I lean over and step, I'm actually not using this hip very much. If you look, I'm pretty straight from shoulder to knee here, so I'm not actually using that hip much. I'm just kind of pushing off with my upper body and the planted leg. So I want to stay bent in this position, step out, back and forth, okay? It's a simple side step. Something else I can do to prep that side step is what I like to call an Elvis. I'm just bringing my knees in and out, okay? Now it's important that I keep my big toes, my little toes, and my heels on the ground for this so I get good ground contact, okay? And I'm just pushing outward on all these hip rotation muscles, okay? Now if I want to get a little bit more athletic, something we do in athletics is we're going to pick our feet up and put them down. Another